Tēnā koutou katoa. In today's top stories, Grant Robertson threatens to end greyhound racing, Fonterra tries to bury the link between nitrates and bowel cancer, and controversial sterilization technology gains government funding. Nau mai, hara mai. Welcome to another episode of the All Report Animal Rights News for Aotearoa. And, ko mahuru Māori te marama nei, ngā mihi o taua kaupapa kia koutou, kia kaha te ako, kia kaha te reo Māori. Happy Māori Language Month to all of you. If you want to support the growth of this project, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on notifications, and comment your feedback down below. Nā, ko te kōrero nui o tēnei wā, the greyhound industry has been given a stark warning after the latest government review into the blood sport was released. Grant Robertson, Minister for Racing, and we're not sure why this ministerial portfolio even exists, said the greyhound racing industry is on notice. Either make the improvements needed or risk closure. I te rātou, the government commissioned the third review into greyhound racing within the last 8 years, after the industry failed to make sufficient improvements. Each review resulted in warnings from the government, giving the industry numerous chances to meet certain welfare and transparency requirements. Meanwhile, hundreds of kurī have been injured and killed in the name of this sport. The most recent review, written by retired judge Sir Bruce Robertson, found that the industry has been very secretive, saying those tasked with monitoring the industry have advised it is incredibly difficult to obtain even the simplest information. Sir Robertson also noted that the majority of euthanized kurī had no reason given for their death. He made a series of recommendations to the industry, including the requirement of comprehensive data on each animal from birth to death and socialization programs for all greyhounds for future rehoming. As per their usual practice, News Talk ZB provided a platform for the industry to deflect from these findings.
So is the government misreading where the industry is at, do you think? Is there a disconnect here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've definitely come a long, long way in a few years, and it's all for the better, and that's what we all want. So we need transparency, and that's what they're getting now. So
but having said that, when you say you've come a long, long way, have you come from a disaster to only ordinary, and therefore that's what Grant wants you to improve? Or would you argue, under any standards, by any observation, you're a pretty decent sort of industry and you should be left alone?
Well, we are a pretty decent industry, to be fair. We love our dogs like they're our babies, well, they're my babies anyway, and they love to get out there and they love to run and they love to race, and we can't force them to race. If they don't want to chase, they don't chase, and they become a pet. And
well, do they become a pet or do they become dead?
Aotearoa is one of only 7 countries in Te Ao that still allows this blood sport to continue. When asked why the industry should get more chances, Grant Robertson said this would be their final warning.
How can it possibly improve, and why should it get a second chance?
Well, it's
actually a third chance, isn't it?
This is a very clear signal, and I believe the clearest signal that's been given to this industry since, in terms of those other 2 reports. It is either things improve or they lose their social licence to exist.
This is a step in the right direction, thanks to the tireless work of animal advocates over the years, who will no doubt be holding Mr. Robertson to his word. In lockdown news, the government shockingly changed its rules to allow whitebaiting during level 4. Whitebaiting is the practice of killing young fish from 6 freshwater species, with 4 of those species being at risk of extinction. A reminder that commercial fishing and selling of these animals remains a legal activity in Aotearoa. In fact, native fish in Aotearoa have no protection under the Wildlife Act.
All of our native fish, the only one that has legal protection is the grayling, which is already extinct.
Previously, the government limited whitebaiting under level 4 to Māori, those with customary fishing rights, which allows for traditional Māori practices without the need of resource consent. This was, however, changed to allow all whitebaiting practices in level 4, including for recreational and commercial interests. Meanwhile, dock rangers are not regulating the fishing as they are not essential workers. The move highlights the strength of fishing advocates at a time when Kiwis are making huge sacrifices to abide by lockdown rules. Animal Save has launched their new climate change initiative. Modelled off of the Fossil Fuels Treaty, the Plant-Based Treaty Initiative is a grassroots campaign designed to put food systems at the forefront of managing the climate crisis. The treaty has 3 core principles: relinquish, redirect, and restore, and encourages individuals, organisations and cities to register their support. You can view the list of those who have signed up, ranging from politicians and health professionals to celebrity musicians such as Leona Lewis and Moby. You'll also find useful tools for political lobbying and general advocacy on their website's campaign hub. Endorse the treaty today and try the Facebook profile picture frame to show your support. The last time we signed a treaty, it didn't go too well. He oia no, he pai ake te tiriti nei I te rā tiriti, koe nei te manako. Pasifika activists have come out against the decision to disband school strike for Auckland amid issues with racism. Helena Falui Whanga-Chan Fung from Pasifika Climate Warriors said closing down the chapter was not the answer.
And by pulling themselves out, they were also pulling out the potential and the political leverage that they have that other communities don't have, other brown communities don't have. It leaves everyone else more work.
Other activists have also questioned the decision, urging the organisation to do the hard work of taking accountability and making the necessary changes instead of disbanding altogether. Here's what Brianna Fruin had to say.
Pasifika activists aren't asking for the climate space to be solely us. We're just asking for our voices to be valued and for us to be able to work together in a way that upholds everyone's dignity and right to their voice to be heard.
Tautoko. The New Zealand Anti-Vivisection Society have launched a new campaign aimed at highlighting the connection between animal agriculture and animal experiments in Aotearoa. NZAVS says a wide range of animals are used in research, testing and teaching with the aim of trying to increase the profits of animal agriculture and prolonging the life of this industry, such as trying to decrease the negative impact animal agriculture has on the environment and increase meat, milk or other animal product production. They point out that the majority, nearly 50% of animals tested on in Aotearoa are from animals within the farmed animal sector. As well as urging supporters to go vegan, NZAVS have a petition urging the government to support scientific institutions to transition away from animal-based testing models. Nearly 18,000 Kiwis have signed so far. Nā, kaore anō koutou kia tautoko, haere ki tā rātou pai tukutuku, kātahi tāurutia ko tōingoa. Police shot and killed a kurī during a call-out in Otautahi at the Ferry Motel after the kurī, unrelated to the call-out, ran out of their hotel room and apparently attacked another police kurī. Police were responding to a non-violent incident involving property damage, which calls into question the need for carrying guns and the involvement of police kurī in the first place. Furthermore, the use of kurī as police weapons is an ethically questionable practice since these animals are not able to consent to doing this work, which often places them in harm's way. The motel manager empathised with the slain kurī, saying they had been staying at the motel for some time and that there had been no prior issues. Ka aroha hoki. Due to mounting evidence of nitrates in drinking water contributing to our disproportionately high rates of bowel cancer, the Food Safety Science and Research Centre, along with funding from Fonterra, have released a report in an attempt to protect our country's reputation as a safe food producer. The report takes a look at water sources and food in Aotearoa to understand the average person's intake of nitrates. The study will be reassuring for our export market. However, the report has been called out for the propaganda that it is, as it doesn't address the local concerns that no doubt sparked the report in the first place, with Greenpeace pointing out an important exclusion, saying it fails to focus on the most at-risk groups. The research explicitly uses registered water supplies and will not include information from unregistered water supplies such as private wells, i.e. the places with the highest rates of bowel cancer and increased concentration of nitrates, i.e. areas high in intensive animal agriculture. Last June, Greenpeace tested water from Ashburton residents, finding of 101 private bore water samples, nearly 90% showed nitrate contamination higher than the cancer risk level. In comparison, the Fonterra-funded study says general nitrate intake in Aotearoa sits at around a quarter of the recommended limit. Tim Chambers of the University of Otago commented saying the research aims and analyses within this report were never designed to support the definitive conclusions used in public statements. Animal agriculture groups have been lobbying the government for a change in immigration and MIQ policies to allow more migrant workers into the country. The dairy sector says they're dealing with an exodus of migrant dairy farm staff following tighter immigration laws, while the flesh industry reports extreme shortages in meat plants, with Silver Fern Farm seeking 1,600 workers for the season peak alone. They say they're particularly concerned about the lack of halal butchers, who enable 43% of our red meat exports to be sold to Muslim consumers. Immigration Minister Chris Farfoy said, "We want to work with sectors and see them develop plans to attract, train and upskill Kiwis into roles and invest in productivity changes that can help them move away from a reliance on low-paid, low-skilled migrant workers." It's fair to say that these sectors no longer represent the Kiwi dream, as they struggle to attract their own citizens and must rely on the exploitation of vulnerable immigrants desperately seeking residency here in Aotearoa. Division among farmers as Groundswell NZ attempts to distance themselves from the controversial Agriculture Action Group, who have recently been called out for spreading conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, emails have emerged from the farming lobbyist group Federated Farmers, which indicated to the government their decision to distance themselves from the earlier Groundswell event Howl of a Protest, with Federated Farmers calling some of the event organisers crazy individuals. Highlighting the friction between each other, Groundswell coordinator Bryce McKenzie said, "If these organisations were doing their job, Groundswell would have never got off the ground." Bryce also mentioned the risk of high-profile agricultural lobbyists like Dairy NZ, Beef and Lamb and the Feds losing their supporters if the status quo remained. Rongo Paikio sounds good to me. And we can breathe a sigh of relief as their next protest has been announced, dubbed the mother of all protests, taking place one day after the Wellington Animal Rights March. Counter-protest, anyone? Last week's floods ravaged West Auckland, leaving behind a path of destruction. There were heartfelt reports of communities coming together and people risking their lives to save not only stranded humans, but non-human animals as well. Despite people's efforts, many animals sadly drowned as a result, with the total number of deaths unknown. As we face climate breakdown, the increased weather events leave us concerned for the fate of captive farm animals across the motu. A dairy farmer, claiming he's not a polluter, has just paid the largest dirty dairy fine of the year. Ekatahuna farmer Derek Berendt and his company Hooker View Dairies were fined after months of repeated offending in 2018, which saw cow effluent discharged into a nearby stream. Berendt appealed the sentence, but the fine was upheld by the Court of Appeal. The judge noted Berendt's consistent attitude of flouting and ignoring the effects of his actions on the environment, his blatant disregard for the council warnings, and his disdaining contact with the Department of Corrections and the court. Stuff has been tracking dairy effluent offending since 2009, finding that on average only 4% of all offending results in convictions. After decades of conservation efforts using cruel trapping and poisons to kill unwanted species, the government has begun funding the development of sterilization options. A team which includes reproductive biologists have been granted $1 million to develop a paste which, when consumed, makes the consumer permanently infertile. This is posed as a more effective and humane method of reducing the numbers of certain unwanted species. Our current methods include trapping, chemical poisoning, which can take up to 20 days to kill their victim, and even drowning. One study looking at the effects of Brodifacoum, one of the most commonly used poisons, found affected cats hemorrhage around the mouth, ears, and anus, and their eye whites turned red. Dead cats had extensive hemorrhaging under the skin and around the kidneys and heart. However, not all conservation experts think sterilization is the solution, with some seeing this as a continuation of our flawed conservation tactics and inability to truly embrace a sustainable life with the natural world. Conservation expert Dr. Arian Wallich addressed this in an interview with RNZ.
I don't suppose you're keen on the one they've come up with at University of Otago where they altered the genetics of the rats so that they can't reproduce?
No, I'm not. The science behind that is quite impressive, presumably, but it's still the same old. We can become more and more technical. We can be more and more technologically innovative. But I wouldn't call that creativity, because it essentially means that we're still thinking in a very small term. We're still thinking about a particular organism that we don't like, that we think is the cause of all troubles. And if we could only eliminate that entity, everything would be fine. It's a real failure of ecological thinking. There is never an entity, or hardly again ever, an entity that if you just take that thing out, troubles are solved. What we need to start thinking is ecologically, more broadly, and more creatively.
Ko motu tātou. That's all the pānui for now. Ngā mihi nunui anō, kia koutou katoa, kia pai tō koutou rā, hei kōnā. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video. Now go subscribe. Kia ora mai rā.